Hello, HintShot here, and welcome to a bit of a different video this time. I'm actually going to be doing and reviewing, sort of explaining my ideas on a spy tier list, a spy weapons tier list that I made a couple days ago, and I'm just going to be reviewing my thoughts on each weapon as we go from the bottom to the top of the tier list. A tier list, by the way, is basically just worst to best weapons ranked, from S category being the best, and D category being the worst. So I got this idea mainly because Uncle Dane did it, and I thought that's a cool way of getting my ideas about each weapon out. It's a nice, concise way of explaining what I think about each weapon without having to make a whole video about it, although I will still probably be doing that. Also remember, this is my own opinion about each weapon, and I don't think there's a huge gap between what I think and what the majority of the spy community thinks about each weapon. And as a spy main coming up to 1,000 hours in the game now, I think I'm relatively qualified to be able to speak about each weapon and what I think about it. So let's just get started with the D tier being the worst tier. And there's actually only one weapon in my D tier, and it probably isn't going to come as a surprise. It's the red tape recorder. It's not good at all. It completely stops any attempt at teamwork the spy has with his team. Stops you from sapping a building and then your soldiers or your demo coming in to destroy them, because it doesn't do any damage to the sentry gun. It just reverses its building construction over like the course of 23 hours. Not fun to use. Very easy for the engineer to just continue doing what he was doing before. And yeah, it has the D tier all to itself, so let's move on up to the C tier now, which is slightly better than D tier. At the end of the C tier, being the worst of the C tier, I have put the Spicicle, which I think a lot of people will probably disagree with me on this one, but I don't like the Spicicle at all. I don't like losing your knife for just purely for being countered. It doesn't seem fun, really, and also I'm not great with revolvers, so the knife is what makes me in particular good at spy, and losing that isn't very fun, and also I don't think the upsides are really worth it. I mean, if you want fire resistance, just use the dead ringer. But I suppose metal crates and ammo crates do replenish it, so maybe I should just play with it more, but I still think it's probably the worst of Spy's knives. So next up in the C tier is actually the Enforcer. Of course, I don't think anyone didn't see this coming. The Enforcer is probably Spy's worst gun. Even though I actually enjoy it more than most. I enjoy the Enforcer quite a lot because I tend to disguise way more than I should, and this extra bit of firepower is actually really shines through when you're playing spy. And as someone, as I say, not good with revolvers, it's actually very useful. It's a very useful weapon, even though it's still in the C tier, which means probably shouldn't use it unless you're just trying it out for the first time. So next up in the C tier, at the top of the C tier, the best of the C tier, is the Ambassador, which after was it the Jungle Inferno nerf? It really limited what you can do with this weapon. It doesn't reward good aim as much anymore. It still does, but like only at close to medium range. You can two-shot about half the classes. That's about it. And also, as I say, I'm not good with revolvers. So this isn't a very useful weapon to me. I would prefer the extra damage that the stock gives, as opposed to trying to go for heads and missing horribly every time. But you know, for someone with better aim, it's probably way more useful. But still, I mean, the nerf, the damage fall-off nerf that it received is really brutal, and I'm gonna miss all the, the stabby clips of him shooting snipers from across the map, right in the head and just one-shotting them. It's beautiful, and that's all gone now. I say this like it's just happened, but the Jungle Infernal nerf was like, what, 3 years ago now? So this hasn't been a very good weapon for a while. Next up in the B tier now, at the very end of the B tier, the very bottom of the B tier, I have put the Cloak and Dagger. I do not like this watch at all. I don't use it in serious games, in proper games, because I just find that it's more of a gimmick that I use in community servers to mess around and just sit and watch people. It doesn't really seem to have many practical applications in the game. The cloak drains at an incredible speed, and it's just not fun to play with. You're just sitting still and waiting for a meter to go up, and it's not fun at all. It probably has more applications than I'm giving it credit for, but for me it's just more of a gimmick watch than anything. Up next, in the B tier, we have the Big Earner. I made a whole video about this thing, go watch it. I did say it was the worst of the Spy's knives, because I completely forgot throughout the entire process of making that video that the Spycicle even existed, so I had to add a little edit in there towards the end to say the Spycicle is probably worse, and it is worse. The Big Earner is the second worst knife. Well done, Big Earner, you got a promotion, and it's fun, it's a fun knife to use, and it's just alright, which is why it's in B tier. You know, it's not bad. As I say, none of Spy's melees can be really bad. It's just inadequate compared to, you know, the other better options that are there that I'm going to be talking about. But it is fun. A speed boost is fun. You know, I made a whole video about this thing, go watch it. But to summarize, fun weapon. Not hugely practical in games, especially in games where you have a lot of demos, and demos specialize in burst damage, which is the main weakness of this weapon. I find that getting one shot just for equipping a weapon isn't very fun or rewarding, or makes a reward worth it. It still has some applications in certain games, but just not the majority of games. Up next in the B tier is the Diamondback, and that might confuse a few people, because the Diamondback is good. It's a good weapon when you're using it. It's just not when you're playing against it. It's not fun to play against. I find that getting crit kills with this thing doesn't feel rewarding, because I think the Diamondback is pretty overpowered, because you're just getting free crits for doing what Spy does anyway. So I've put it in the B tier, not because it isn't good, but because I feel it's too good and doesn't feel fun. It's just kind of dumb. It's kind of dumb. So yeah, nerf the Diamondback. It sucks. It's not fun to play with or against. Maybe if you just want to abuse it to its maximum potential, you can go do that if that's your thing. It's not mine. Up next, at the top of the B list, the final weapon in the B list, is the Your Eternal Reward, which I like. I actually quite like the Your Eternal Reward. It's very useful for taking out NG nests. The silent kill aspect comes into play a lot more than you might think. And it got buffed at Jungle Inferno to a bit of a stupid buff, really, because they kind of just made an exploit that was possible with it into a main feature of the knife. The fact that it eats up all your cloak whenever you disguise kind of sucks, but there has to be a downside somewhere. But it doesn't really matter, since you can just disguise and spawn and then just refill your cloak. So yeah, maybe kind of broken as well, maybe kind of overpowered, but it's still very useful at the moment. So now we're moving up to the A tier, which is where pretty damn good weapons go, actually. So I've only got 2 weapons in the A tier, actually, and the bottom of the A tier is reserved for the default sapper. It's better than the red tape recorder. Moving along to the top of the A tier, we have the L'Étranger, which is one of my favourite revolvers. Well, it's my second favourite revolver, and it's really useful. The cloak benefits of using this come into play with pretty much every knife. It works well with every knife and every watch. And it's just, it still has the majority of firepower that you would need from a revolver. It can still 3-shot Razorback snipers. It can still finish off low health enemies who have started to retreat. It's just a very useful weapon. And the extended cloak you get from this weapon is so useful. It's just really useful. So that's it for the A tier. Moving on now to the S tier, the top of the shop, the best weapons that Spy has. And I mean, a lot of these are going to be expected as the ones that aren't in the rest of the tiers. But at the bottom of the S tier, we have the stock Invis watch. It is real damn good. It is real damn good. You'll find that most of Spy's stocked weapons are probably the best choice, and there's not really a lot of room for maneuverability in terms of playstyle with Spy, like there are with other classes. Like with Soldier, you could have, Market Garden Soldier, you could have Airstrike Soldier, you could do Tri-Horde Soldier, you can do Beggar's Bazooka Soldier. There's a lot of different playstyles with most classes. You can't really have that with Spy, other than the default, you know, sneaky spy and then just gun spy, I guess, but in terms of large different play styles, there isn't a lot, which is why spy stock weapons are usually the best choice, and the Invis Watch isn't any different. It's just real good. You can pick up metal when you're invisible, and like the cloak and dagger, and it's just real useful. Up next we have the Dead Ringer, which just beat out the Invis Watch, purely because of the damage resistance that it gives and the instant invisibility and invulnerability you get from it. It's just so useful. I use the Dead Ringer so much. It's just, especially when you're running a knife that gives you lower health like the Big Earner and the Kunai, it's just so useful. And you know, I mean, you're not even using it for faking your death most of the time. You're just using it to as a getaway, which you can't really do with the other watches, because I mean, you can kind of tell where Spy goes when he turns invisible. I mean, a good player will be able to tell where a spy went, but with instant invisibility, it's much harder, I feel. Especially if you get set on fire, and then if you turn invisible, I mean, it doesn't put it out with other watches, but it does with the Dead Ringer. You've set on fire, just put out Dead Ringer, boom, you're extinguished, and also invulnerable to fire for a few seconds. Just all around very useful. One of Spy's top weapons. Is it a weapon? I'd say it's more of a tool, I guess. Moving along, anyway, to the third best spy weapon, in my opinion, is the Kunai, of course. Everyone loves this thing. It's so useful. You get so much health. It extinguishes you if you backstab someone while you're on fire. It's so useful, man. I mean, you don't even need health packs when you've got this thing, really. Once you got that first stab, I mean, you're off. You can surf damage. You can do a lot of things that Spy usually wouldn't be able to do. Become a much tankier class. You can go for more riskier stabs, because if you do get one stab, then you back up to over full health, and then you can go for a second one. It's so useful, and it's just, you know, it's Spy's second best knife, probably. Some would argue it is his best knife because they use it non-stop, but it is damn good. It deserves the title of being my second favorite knife, because I use it a lot, and you know, I mean, the health deficit you get from equipping it is basically never comes into play. It's useful on most maps where there are just tons of enemies around everywhere, which are basically free walking health packs. And, you know, it's just all around very useful. It's almost a direct upgrade to stock. So, enough about the Kunai. We're now moving on to Spy's second best weapon, in my opinion. And that is, of course, the stock revolver. Of course it is. Of course it's the stock revolver. It's just, it gets the job done. No damage penalties. No penalties of any kind, actually. You know, you wouldn't expect Spy to have as much firepower as this thing can give. It's really useful. It's actually just a very good weapon. If you practice well with it, Gun Spy can be, you know, very viable against other classes in terms of just a 1v1 situation. And you can two-shot, you know, four, five of the classes, and it's just, you know, very useful taking out Razorback snipers. It's just a good gun, you know? It's a good gun. So now we move on to the top spy weapon, in my opinion, the best of the best, and it is, of course, the stock knife. It is the stock knife, of course it's the stock knife. You know, this thing, I mean, it gets the job done. It's a lot like the revolver, that it's got no penalties, you know? You don't lose anything, you don't gain anything. You know, you never lose it. It's always there. It's reliable, which, you know, are all of Spy stock weapons, which is why they're all S tier, and it's just my favorite. It's my favorite Spy knife because it's just simple. It gets the job done. It's also, you know, it's also the staple of Spy. You know, I mean, you can one-shot every single class from behind in this game with this weapon. It's insanely powerful. And I mean, I know you can do that with the other weapons, but you know, I mean, with this one, there's no penalty for having it equipped. It just frees you once you've been playing with the other knives. You know, it almost feels like a breath of fresh air when you've been trying out stuff with the Kunai and the Big Earner for a while. It's just like, wow, I have this amount of health. It's just always reliable, and there's not much else I can really say about it other than, you know, use it. It's Spy's best. Stock Spy is Spy at his best. Yeah, that's about it. So there's my tier list. It's probably about what people expected, honestly. And of course I will probably be changing this around, and who knows, I'll maybe make an update on this in a year or two's time, once I've played with each of these weapons more. Of course the disguise kit isn't in here, by the way, because there's no alternative. I almost didn't include the sapper in this because, I mean, it's not the red tape recorder. And of course there are no reskins in this either, but you know, that's purely based on aesthetics. So anyway, if you now hate me for what order I've ranked these in, or if you like me even more for the order I've ranked these in, I'd appreciate discussion. It's always healthy to promote, you know, different ideas about what different people think, and this is just my idea. As I say, I've been playing the game for up to 1,000 hours now, so I think I have some relative qualifications to be able to talk about what I think is the best and worst spy weapon. So yeah, there you go. That's just my little concise thoughts about each weapon, in terms of, you know, how much better they are than each other. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you maybe got some information out of this. The main information you'll probably get out of this is use stock, except with Dead Ringer. But, you know, it's useful to try everything out. It's useful to try everything out anyway, so you can tell what's worse than other things. And, you know, obviously don't base your own opinion off of what I've put, because I may be completely wrong. That's always the fear when making these kind of things, is that everyone else thinks the exact opposite to what you think. But I'm pretty sure I've hit the nail on the head here. Maybe people will be angry about the Spicicle thing. Most people really love the Spicicle, and I really don't know why. It's just, I've not found it useful. It seems like a direct downgrade to me. But anyway, I've talked enough about that. So, thank you for watching, and I guess I'll see you in the next one. Cheerio.
Activate the charge, Doctor.